Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good evening, regardless of the coast that you live on. I am back with Rob Shu here to talk. I say it's a preview for the Browns game, but me and Rob are old time Niner fans, so we're gonna dance on the grave of the Dallas Cowboys. We talked about it off screen about how much it means every time Dallas gets their ass whipped. So, uh, everybody, welcome. For all those of you who are watching me live or on replay, I appreciate it. If you're watching through Twitter, come through YouTube. It helps a lot. Same thing on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, come over to the YouTube channel. Rob, how you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic, man. I'm excited to be talking Niners. It couldn't be at a better point in the season right now. And yeah, I absolutely do like to gloat a little bit about wins over the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, just the enthusiasm I get from my brother, my old man, who, it harkens back to the memories of when you and I were teenagers. And there were a sequence of these games that meant a lot between Dallas and the Niners. And the idea that Kittle dragged that back into the light with his
beautiful
insult on the T-shirt. Beautiful stuff. So I can't wait to talk about it.
Let's talk about that. We'll hit it off with the T-shirt. So the league fined him almost $14K. Okay, for him, that's like wiping his butt with like a $1 bill, right? Like, who cares,
bupkis,
right?
Bupkis.
And when asked about it, he pretty much said, "I'd do it again." He didn't mean it in a disrespectful way. He was really just kind of paying homage to Gary Plummer. For those of you who are young and don't remember Gary Plummer, he was a linebacker on the 94 49ers that won the Super Bowl, their fifth championship. They beat the San Diego Chargers 49-26. The Cowboys were our nemesis, okay? We beat them in the 80s. They came back in the 90s with a really good team. They kicked our ass 2 years in a row. Then we got the super team with Dion and all these guys. Gary Plummer was one of them. He came over from the Chargers. Pulled up the shirt. I think it was after the game. And pretty much it said "F the Cowboys." Okay, that's just it's a historical thing. It's all it really was to me. And so I knew about it before it actually happened. I was told by my buddy Raj from RSF 49ers that he's like, "Don't say anything, but we can kind of like allude to it." So during our stream, we kept doing this, like we were pulling up our shirts, right? And we're like, "Just watch for this, And like, so after the game, I'm like, I don't know what Rob's talking about. I haven't heard nothing. All of a sudden, I see the pick online. I'm like, oh, it did happen. And of course, Micah Parsons is a soft ass, Bizzle. So yeah, that was awesome. I don't know. I can't say like in a way like, oh, you're adding fuel to the fire, but it's not like the Cowboys can beat us anyways. So I don't know what was your take on it? Because we were teenagers in that last time that that championship game happened. So all of us, we look back on that with fond memories.
Yeah, fond memories and a lot of emotions. I mean, losing to the Cowboys then was very painful. Yes, we overcame that and got our championship that year. And then it was just more pain watching Dion go over to the Cowboys at that point. Like that was to this point with the F someone. I had my favorite Niner shirt at the time was Jerry's 101 shirt. It was the shirt they gave away at the game or after the game where he got touchdown number 101. It was a free giveaway type of t-shirt, but to me it meant the world because Jerry Rice was by far my favorite player growing up, and that just was special. On the back of that one in big bold letters, I wrote F Dion that next season because I couldn't take that idea of going from the Niners to the Cowboys. That was unheard of to me. That was the level of disdain, like as a fan that I had. And it was good-natured disdain. I feel like nowadays we get into a little more violent disdain, and that's not in my comfort zone. When I see people at games that are being rough to other fans, not physically rough, but even verbally abusive, it's just that takes it a little too far. But I think what Kittle is alluding to, I don't buy it completely that it's not personal. It is, but it's like it's good-natured personal. It's not like a personal attack on one of the players on the Dallas Cowboys or one of their families. It's just a trash talk about their entire city because we've owned you for a little bit. And that to me is like, it's fantastic. It's good for the rivalry. It's good natured. It's not in any way crass, right? I mean, sure, the language may be, but I think we're way too sensitive about the F word anyway. So to me, I love it. I love the statement it makes. I love that Debo came out and said some, physical things about that game. Like the mindset that this team seems to have when playing a worthy opponent like I would put Dallas in that category. I think to some degree, Micah Parsons is somewhat right that like it wasn't a true taste of what the Cowboys could be on a good day. But that doesn't change the fact that I think even on a good day, we beat them.
I think their quarterback holds them back. I think that's their biggest problem. If you look at their roster talent-wise, they're a good team. They have good players. They're very talented. I understand when Parsons says that, like, they're not like, you know, they're not like a whole other level above us, the sort of thing. I think the Niners are kind of a level above them because the Niners have went through a lot of, for what the Niners have had to deal with the last couple of years with like all the losing in the championship game or the Super Bowl. You know, they've had a team that's been up there. The Niners are just a little bit more, they have a little bit more, what's not experience, but like they're tougher. They got more grit. You know what I mean? They've been through more. I mean, Dallas half the time can't even make the playoffs. You know what I mean? And the last 2 years they have made it, we beat them both times. And the first time it shouldn't have even been as close, but we had Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. So that game should have been way out of hand by that time. I was totally that game. I didn't expect it. I did not expect that they would just walk all over Dallas, but in my mind, for the amount of obnoxious Cowboys fans that I know, it was a great day.
Yeah.
And I looked for Stephen A after the game to do his customary laugh to the camera, and it was the greatest thing ever in life.
It's spectacular.
I know a lot of arrogant Cowboys fans. I also know a couple guys that I grew up with who are really good dudes, right?
Yeah.
Really nice dudes. And like they're the most passionate yet humble Cowboys fans. And it's like I felt bad. I put something on Instagram or Twitter about the game or something. I think it's the song Triple H's entrance music, "Bow Down to the King," from Radio. I forget who's the band that sings it, and it was like I felt bad posting that to my Instagram story. But when you win 42-10, you can kind of go that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that seems like a tasteful gloat, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it. I thought about it. I'm like, nah, dude, you got to stand true to who you are. So I did it. He didn't say anything. He doesn't really say much on Facebook or Twitter anymore or Instagram anyways, but I felt bad, but at the same time I didn't feel bad. It was kind of like, man, F that, man. Kick their ass. Like, I'm good with it. I'm going to say what's up real quick to the chat. We got Raphael562 in here, friend of the channel since the beginning. How are you, my friend? Thank you for coming through. Fired Up 49ers, a newer friend to the channel, but always here. Thank you very, very, very much. 15-2, number 1 seed, take 6. Let's just win Sunday, homie.
Right.
That's all I'm worried about. Bring Time Ocean says, Big Aaron, what's up? Douglas, he says, like, sub, bang, bang, Niner gang, Niner mob. Thank you very much. Yeah, man. Yeah, that was a great game. It's for me and you are individuals that we're all about energies and like and things that, you know, keep us positive. And like, you know, for people, for a person like myself who deals with outside factors in life that can bring me down, the Niners, I can't believe I say this, are the most awesome thing in my life right now. They're like, I have a lot of bad things going on, but just the fact that like my football team is 5-0 and looking like they could be a Super Bowl contender, pretty good feeling. I'm not gonna lie. I have that like chest out feeling after like when I walked into work this week after the game, and I know I was gonna run into one of my coworkers who's a Cowboys fan. Oh, the feathers were nice and bright and shiny. The you know what I'm talking about, the bird.
Yeah, a little peacocking.
I was totally peacocking. I was like,
yeah.
I walked up to him and all I said was, "What happened?" And he's like, "Man, we didn't get off the plane." I was like, yeah.
I swear, those types of games, when you're on the losing end of it, it's almost easier to write it off because it feels like such an anomaly that things just went so opposite of what you were expecting that you're like, yeah, it was just a bad game. And a little part of me thinks that there's something to that. But again, I do think the Niners are a higher level caliber team than the Cowboys. I think we're going to beat them most days. But yeah, that was a poor showing.
Yeah, that was weird. I just didn't expect them to be that flat.
No.
Because if you look at their roster from top to bottom, they're comparable. I think they have a better defensive line than the 49ers as a whole. the Niners have the best player in the league at his position, but as a whole, I think they have a better defense line as far as getting pressure constantly. I think the Niners are struggling still a little bit. That's why you make the move for Randy Gregory.
Yeah.
But as a defense, like top to bottom, the Niners are the better defense. Like they just, you got a stud at every level, pretty much, is what I'm saying. The big talk that I think is surprising, but not surprising, is that the media, the national media, is starting to notice a certain guy with the initials of BP, number 13. Bro, I don't like to speak in hyperbole and talk too much about stuff in its early stages, but
Yeah.
the kid's pretty good.
Yeah.
The kid's pretty good, Rob.
He just
What's your
keeps
take on Brock?
he just keeps showing at every opportunity why Kyle Shanahan seems to have so much faith in him, right? I think there were a lot of doubters when Shanahan talked about him in the offseason while everyone was saying, how could you say that about someone who has so few starts under his belt and is having offseason surgery on his throwing arm? And Kyle Shanahan felt, I don't know, he came across to me very secure in who the starter was and the language he used about having proved it in front of the locker room, like on tape, putting it on tape. And I think that just continues to be the case. Everyone wants to, critique this part of his game, that part of his game. And he's not a super elite athlete as far as that goes. He's not going to physically wow you in that regard. But within this system, it really doesn't matter because he is such a great fit. And not to say he couldn't be successful in other systems as well. He just wouldn't be the type that off script, I think, would get you as many plays in a different offensive set. But for Shanahan's offense, requiring that fast processor speed, the ability to get through all the reads, the ability to put the ball out on time, in the right place to the right read is so critical. And Brock seems to do it pretty effortlessly. There are still, I think, challenges that lie ahead. He is a smaller frame. So in games where he's getting hit a consistent number of times, is that going to wear on as the season goes on? That's a fair question. And, I get people wanting to doubt him because he doesn't have the physical skill set. But when you look at the statistics, when you look at what he's been able to do, when you watch the freaking tape, he's special in a lot of ways. And I gotta, I can't wait until the next time I'm on when my co-host on Between Two Beards gets back to do one with Randon. He has infamously said of Brock that he has a noodle arm. And at the time, I took offense to that term. At the same time, I had to concede that it wasn't the strongest of arms. Now that I've seen several of the throws from the last couple of weeks, he's putting the ball out on 20-yard outs. Some significant throws that you have to have a strong arm to hit. Not a strong arm. You have to have an NFL caliber arm. He clearly has that. So I'm done with the questioning of arm strength. Sure, he's not got a rifle. He's not going to chuck it downfield consistently. But within this offense, again, I don't think that matters.
He is what Kyle Shanahan has been looking for since he had Matt Ryan in Atlanta.
Yes.
And he doesn't have the body or the size or the arm, but I think this offense looks better than that Atlanta offense did.
I agree.
Just based on how many points it scores and just how dangerous they are and how many people you can hit them up with.
And how balanced it is. It's
super balanced. I'm going to say this. I never really took offense to people that were doubting Brock, but I was telling people, like, there's just something about his maturity and his mental aspect of his game that, Brent Jones was asked on KNB. I think it was KNBR. It might be 95.7. I forget. I get lost with all those names. He was asked straight up, is there anything about Brock's game? And the guy's like, I know it's early and we're not trying to say, tit for tat that he compares this said player, but do you see similarities between him and Montana as far as like Montana's innate ability to stay calm in pressure situations,
right,
and make accurate throws, move the offense, efficient? You looked at Montana. Montana wasn't a big guy. He had an average arm, but he was super accurate, like ridiculously accurate. Like Montana in all the Super Bowls he was in, completed nearly 70% of his throws. That's insane, bro. In an era where you can mug receivers and guys could get taken out over the middle like consistently, I see that aspect of. I'm not saying, and people are like, oh, here we go. People are losing their minds, and no. I'm just saying like the mental aspect. Like you watch his eyes during games, and he's always just the same. There's no change in his pulse. Somebody's like, you got to go check his pulse to see if he's breathing. Like he just seems so calm. What's your take on Brock? I can't say you were an apologist for Jimmy Garoppolo. You just weren't big on people bagging on him, and I definitely bagged on him. I was not a fan of him. But I could kind of understand like how you could like a quarterback because he wins and he gets things done, and like I don't necessarily like get mad when people take shots at Brock, because if you look at him, he physically doesn't have a body. Like I think the MVP conversation, to be honest with you, it's going to go against him that he was Mr. Irrelevant and then he was the last pick in the draft. And he's a small guy.
It will either go against him or the media will spin it into this national storyline, and it will become clear that he's sort of running away with it, and it will become sort of a media darling, right? But I think more likely, as you said, it makes it less likely that he will get that MVP. So I think that is the probably the way in which it goes. So with regard to Jimmy Garoppolo, I always felt like what he did successfully mattered. Like the strengths to his game worked well within this system, and yet didn't get the credit for it because what he did well wasn't sexy, right? Short, intermediate passes across the middle, being on time, being accurate, are not highlight-worthy material. And yet they keep an offense moving, right? And what is highlight-worthy material for Jimmy Garoppolo is the unexplainable throw to a linebacker on the opposing team at some point, as if you were targeting that individual, right? And you see it with Dak too, right? Those kind of mistakes where you just look at them and you're like, did the processor seize up there? Like, what happened to the motor? What happened to the gears up in your head when you made that throw? And I feel like what hindered the escalation of Purdy to where he should have been rather quickly, save for by 49er faithful, was that fact again, was that his skill set, where he excels, isn't all that sexy until you see him do it so well over and over and over and over again. And then it becomes apparent that, like, to your point, oh shit, if you are that accurate, if you can find the right receiver to hit at the right time on all these plays within Kyle Shanahan's offense, you're going to average 30 points per game. And if you average 30 points per game, you are a powerhouse within the NFL, especially if you've paired that with an elite defense like the Niners have. So it is, to me, it worked against Brock Purdy. His skill set, what he does well, those things that like being unflappable, that's not all that exciting, but in the moment, it's huge. I also think it's a great compliment to Kyle Shanahan, who, in my humble experience, has tightened up in some of the biggest moments, to think now that he has a quarterback. And I thought Jimmy Garoppolo exacerbated that issue. I thought that the two of them were like water and oil, like just didn't go together, made each other's flaws worse. I think Shanahan's crave for perfection made Jimmy throw some of those picks because he was like, I don't know what to do. Should have just let Jimmy ball a little bit. I digress. I don't mean to defend Jimmy Garoppolo, but we did bring him up.
I brought him up with Brock Purdy. It's a fair comparison.
Yeah, with Brock Purdy, I thought there were so many people that, last year when the comparison was to another quarterback who now is with Dallas, it was, well, Brock can't make those big throws. He can't do those sexy things. And I think being unable to do those sexy things made it harder for people to embrace him in the way that maybe he should have been quicker. Because you look back at the comments at people who know it. Steve Young early on said this kid was special.
I've said this before, regardless, I don't know, of Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You look at quarterbacks who have all the prerequisite traits, size, arm strength, mobility. That gets you drafted high.
Yes, it does.
They can't measure what's between the ears until you get into the league. Like there's this talk about this quarterback from USC, Caleb Williams, like the biggest can't miss prospect next year. That's a lot of pressure to put on somebody.
It is.
And I asked myself, like, who would I rather have? And I'm not gonna lie, like Purdy just is my dude right now, and I'm gonna ride or die with Purdy. And it sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds stupid. Like you would take that little shrimp guy with the little arm over, maybe the best quarterback to come out in the last, I don't know, decade out of college. And it's like, yeah, because he's proven that in pressure situations so far, he's the guy for the job.
That's just it.
It's not always the big arm and the athletic ability, because look at Justin Fields, man. Like Justin Fields is the perfect example of a guy who was drafted based on his physical traits.
Yep.
But they couldn't measure the brain. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, there are a lot, when you go back, there are a lot of can't miss draft prospects that were misses, right? Like you went in thinking this is a lock. This person is going to make the leap to the NFL, and some don't. So to your point, the idea that Brock has put it on tape, I think does matter more.
Yeah, and it's just you look at Justin Fields, and he's this guy, and he has all these traits, right? And like there was talk that the Niners are going to draft him, or that the Niners are going to draft Mac Jones, and like, man, like you look at Fields, and he has everything you want, and even in Trey Lance, you look at him, and he could throw the deep ball, he was athletic, he was big, but he just had an inability to read. He couldn't read the field. He just, for some reason, for some guys, reading the field is really difficult for them.
Yeah.
They can process stuff as far as like on film or on paper, being able to intake certain things, and they're good with it. But when it comes to actually doing it out on the field, some guys just, they don't have it. And it's the talk that Brent Jones was talking about. And he was like, Montana had this ability to where like things when they were at their worst and most stressful, his brain was like in slow motion. And I get the exact same vibe from Brock. Like I watch games. My brother's a Dolphins fan, right? He looks at me and he looks at Brock. We'll watch each other's games if they're not on at the same time. And he's like, he has like zero emotion in his face. Like he doesn't look rattled at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize how important that is. I stream with a guy every week named Ted Hazelrig, Ted Talks Paul.
Gotcha.
And he wasn't big on how the Niners did Purdy or Lance, right? And he really wasn't sold on Brock Purdy. He bought in after the game this past Sunday. He's like, I'm doing an apology tour. It's time for me to come clean. Brock Purdy's the quarterback of the 49ers.
About damn time.
And I don't see, no, but his issue isn't that Brock can't be the guy.
Right.
He always says his issue is the hyperbole of like speaking things into existence that haven't had enough time to marinate. Like you got to have more like film. You got to have more games played. People we live in a society where like everything is like instant gratification, instant, like this guy's the greatest thing I've ever seen, and he's played like 10 games, right? Like,
yeah,
that was his issue.
I do think that within the NFL, the sample size of careers is so small that it's almost warranted to celebrate these small runs that guys have. I mean, you're talking about the average tenure in the NFL is like 3 years for a player. Yeah. And so if like Brock for half of last season and the first quarter of this one, you're crushing it. To me, that's a fair amount of game tape to have.
I think the one thing about my bud Ted is and I understood it from this perspective. How many of us bought into Jimmy Garoppolo after those 5 games?
Oh, right.
I did.
Oh, I was hopeful. I was real hopeful.
You thought we found the next great quarterback for our franchise. Did you not?
I was fine with the salary we gave him, right? I mean, I thought maybe I was glad it was Jed's money. Let's be clear on that.
Not yours.
But I was like, hey, cost of doing business.
Yeah, we always talk about that as fans. Like, that's just a business part of it. Yeah, when it ain't your billions that you're throwing around, it's the cost of doing business. Like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's yeah,
I do think, though, there's a big difference, right, between what happened with Jimmy and what happened with Brock. Jimmy, like, that was gunslinging. A lot of those plays he made in those 5 games, the most brilliant ones were off script because he didn't know the offense. Whereas what we witnessed last season and certainly this year from Brock is like a masterclass in how to run Kyle Shanahan's offense. It's like if anyone else to this point in Kyle Shanahan's career with San Francisco had operated the offense at the level of efficiency that Purdy has been, we would have been winning even more games to this point. So to me, yeah, that part matters. The way in which he has been playing, it's not been gunslinging, getting lucky. I mean, there is some luck involved. He should have had more picks last year, but the way in which he's been winning is through truly unlocking this offense.
There was something that you said about a year ago or so that didn't resonate with me about enjoying the process, enjoying living in the moment of like a good team. And I was just like, nah, we got to, it's Super Bowl or bust, which I still kind of feel like that way a little bit, right?
Sure.
We all do, because it's been 30 years. But I was watching the game the other day. Again, I talk about my brother all the time. I looked at my brother and I was like, you know what? Sometimes we just got to enjoy the fact that we're in this era right now of 49er ball where they're a really good team. They got really good linebackers, defensive linemen, tight end, running back, wide receivers. I mean, it's like this doesn't happen all the time, and it's not something that is repeatable all the time either. Like, front office people leave. You draft later in the draft now because you're good, and after a while the cupboard becomes bare. So like, as a Niners fan, I think we all gotta I'm not saying, be okay with us not winning a Super Bowl. I'm saying like, this is a good ass team.
Yes.
And we need to enjoy watching this because it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable football.
Right.
And I don't know, like I was like, nah, I can't get down with Rob's thinking. And now I'm like, I know exactly what he's talking about.
I love finding a new convert to the idea of being appreciative of what we're in the moment. And that simple idea that, yes, the ultimate goal is absolutely the Super Bowl, and the Niners should do whatever it takes to get there. And just by falling short, it doesn't transition that entire season to be a waste or not worthy of remembrance. I mean, I look back on some of those teams that lost to Dallas in the 90s, and that was heartbreak to watch those great teams lose to Dallas and then watch Dallas go on to win the Super Bowl. That was devastating. But it is like that saying that, that heartbreak that you experience in that moment of those teams not making it to the promised land, that heartbreak is reflective of the love or the hope that you were full of prior to that loss. And that to me shows how special those moments are, that you really are that invested in the process, that failure to make it to the Super Bowl and win it all brings you down to that level, which really highlights what that season was and how special it was. I look back on 2019, having gone to a bunch of the games, making it out to Miami for the Super Bowl, and like it stung. I can't even tell you. I nearly ended a friendship with someone who talked shit to me after that game, like shot me a text right as I was walking out of the stadium. And I was like, I shot back something that was cold, and because in the moment, there was nothing lower than that feeling. Now I look back on 2019, I'm like, damn, that was a fun ride. Like, that was an amazing team. Some phenomenal victories in Levi Stadium in January. Like, I see pictures that come back on my iPhone. I remember that with nothing but joy. I would still like to host that Lombardi, though.
Yeah, you can be happy to enjoy something and not be okay with the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. You used to say that you couldn't get down with certain people's energy, right? Like it would bring you down. And I was like, what is he saying? And then I see people like try so hard to find stuff wrong with the Niners right now. I understand you don't want to say that they're a perfect team and that you want to be critical of things.
Sure.
But when it's your whole basis of everything, where you're just being a negative ass person and just talking down, like I can't get down with that either. And I'm going to block you. Like, breaking down film and making comments about, certain things within the offense and the defense that's football related, that's one thing. But when it's just, I have a duty to be super negative and always be that guy, like, oh, sure, I said it, I got the clicks, like I'm willing to go there. Like, well, you can go there and not have me see it. So yeah.
I'm with you on that 100%. I mean, you've got to look at this team. Like, first of all, there's no guarantees, regardless of whether the Niners are the most talented roster in the NFL, which I would make the argument that they are. I would make the argument that right now they are playing as the best team in the NFL. Even if those statements by me are factually accurate, the idea of the NFL is one and done in the playoffs. So right away, it means that it's not always the best team that advances. And it is the most violent sport that has ever been played, save for the gladiators back in the day. And so, again, you're looking at, yes, right now we're healthy, everyone's in place, but injuries happen in the NFL. They will happen to the 49ers. It's a question of to who and for how long. If they get lucky with the injury bug, I absolutely believe that this is a year the Niners have a phenomenal shot at winning the Super Bowl. But I acknowledge all of those other realities as well. Any one of them could, unfortunately, derail what should be a picture-perfect season. I mean, I said it earlier in the season. When I'm picking games this year, right, I think the Niners are going, at worst, something like 12-5 when I did my schedule prediction. Now that I've seen where they're at, I think it could be higher. I'm picking every single game for the Niners to win because then I don't have to guess what those losses are in the season, and I will do well in my record for Niners wins and losses. I think in doing that, I may have a pretty phenomenal win-loss record, right? Like the way they've been playing, it sets up, if everyone stays healthy, for being in every single game.
The only game that I really see them having a legitimate shot at losing or two is maybe Seattle and maybe Philly.
I agree with Philly for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And that kind of brings me into my next topic. So a lot of people are saying this, and I really hate it because it's 5 weeks in. I hate when people say, Niners are the best team in the NFL, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like Philly's waiting in the background, like, yeah, keep talking that ass about, the Niners, and we'll just sit here with our unbeaten record too. Like, do you think right now, from Rob Shue's perspective, the 49ers are far and away the best team in the National Football League as we sit in as we're on the precipice of week 6?
Far and away, no. Do I think they're the best team in the NFL? Yes. Do I think they are the best team in the NFC by a pretty wide margin? I do. I think that they're a cut above Philly at this point. But my take to Niner faithful who have said, and they're right, Philly's gotten lucky. Like Philly could be 3-2 right now. Yeah, but they're not. They're 5-0. And the simple fact that they're not firing on all cylinders right now, I don't think it's a dearth of talent for them. Like, I don't think they have too few star players. I just think that enough players left, new players are stepping in and filling roles that, like, it takes a while for that to come together. We've seen that for the Niners in previous seasons with slow starts, but then everyone comes together. The offensive line gels, the defensive line gels. All of a sudden they start to get rolling. I see Philly as potentially being able to do that later in the season. And it's dangerous because of the fact that when they weren't firing on all cylinders, they didn't drop those games. And unfortunately, we only play Philly once. So even if we beat them, we can't control what their win-loss record is. We can only control our own. If they end up with that number 1 seed and we have to go into Philly in the playoffs, I think that's a huge swing in momentum for the Niners versus hosting them at Levi's Stadium. So again, I just think that taking Philly too lightly, even though I believe the Niners are a cut above, is a mistake.
I'm going to say this, and you guys can kill me later on if this doesn't come to pass. But if the Niners get the number 1 seed, they will be in the Super Bowl this year. I 100% believe that as a team. They're that good.
Yeah.
If they have to go to Philly, like you said, it changes everything.
I have gone on record about this season, man. I have no fear saying it.
They have to get the number 1 seed. And when the beginning of the season started, I'm like, I don't know if that's even possible. And then you see the way they played in these first 5 games, and it's like, it's entirely possible to get the number 1 seed this year. Philly scares me. Seattle scares me. The Rams scare me a little bit. They played us the best. Bengals scare me a little bit. This game Sunday scares me a little bit.
I was just going to say, what about this Browns team? Let's talk about Cleveland.
Now, we're going into Cleveland, and they don't have their quarterback, right? But they have one of the best run defenses and defenses overall in the National Football League. This could be a really low-scoring game.
Yes, it could.
And they have a really good pass rush, too. This is a scary one for me.
Yeah.
in the end, I think we win because I think we're just the better team with the better coach. And I don't necessarily hear like a trap game. No, not every game that you go into is a trap game. It's just or a team a team that you're supposed to beat. But it just feels this is one of the first games that's made me nervous. You know, you're going into Cleveland, you come to the East Coast.
Yep.
For me, it's a 1:00 start, so that's beautiful. Football's done by 4:00 in the afternoon on my Sunday. I can eat dinner and relax for the rest of the day. For you guys, it's like 10 a.m. So you're waking up eating eggs and bacon and then watching 49er football. So if Rob, you end up partying Saturday night, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. The good thing for me about it being over is, I mean, technically it's my girl's birthday on Monday, but I leave on a business trip Monday. So I'm in trouble there already. We're celebrating it on Sunday. The fact that the Niners game will be over by 1 is good for me because then I can actually spend the rest of the day paying attention to her and not football.
That's probably going to make it. You have a really good Sunday. I'm just going to put that. I'm going to put that out there. You know, everything just the stars are aligning. Girl happy, Niners win, business trip Monday, all is good.
I'll take it. I will be at the game in LA Monday night. I'll be going to Dallas versus the Chargers on Monday Night Football. So I'm instantly a Chargers fan just because of the fact that it's against the Cowboys.
Absolutely.
But hey, Justin Herbert, that should be fun.
Justin Herbert's a good quarterback. Still in a phone booth. If you ask me who to take right now to win a game, I'm taking Brock Purdy.
It all matters. System fit matters a lot. And right now, without seeing, I don't know, a clear downside, I don't blame you for making that decision, right? You could take a quarterback with all those gifts. If the system for Shanahan doesn't click with them and they're making the wrong reads, it doesn't matter if they're making those extra plays because they're not keeping the chains moving. And that's what keeps this offense efficient. It allows us to run so many plays, run the same play in different sets, and it unlocks the ability to put up points.
Luke Luna says it's only after we lose do we realize we are overconfident. Tension will be high versus the Eagles.
Facts.
Yeah, the Niners can talk all they want about, last year being last year. Teams say that. I mean, look at the Cowboys said a bunch of S before this past game, and then they got their freaking whatever shoved in. So to me, it's just a matter of like the Niners are saying all the right things, but to say, it's just no, they're going in there. They want to hurt people. They want to win. They want to play well.
Yeah. And let's be serious about Cleveland. This is the number 1 defense in the league that we're going up against right now.
Yeah, that makes me nervous because we've been humming. I mean, humming.
Something has to give, right? You can't average 30 and have the best defense in the league. Like one of those things is not going to be true on Sunday.
Yeah, I hope we can make it through with the unbeaten record. But it's Rob D says this week, Kittle, me, Jerry Rice, and Rob's girl all had birthdays. Libras are awesome.
They are. And my birthday's next weekend, also a Libra.
Awesome. I'm a Sagittarius. I'm a December. Yeah, so who cares? Who cares about Aaron's birthday?
It only matters when it gets close. Like when it is close to your birthday, we'll be talking about your birthday.
Right. Everyone's going to be telling me. I had a conversation at work the other day. We were talking about ages and stuff, and I work with this one young guy, and I was like, yeah, I'm about to be 44. And he goes, damn. And I was like, thank you. Awesome. That's a great reaction. He goes,
making me feel good.
And he goes, but you don't. And then he came out with you don't look at to kind of like smooth it over.
Yeah.
You only look like you're about 35 or something. I'm like, yeah. Okay.
Appreciate that.
The damn said everything you needed to say of a reaction.
Oh,
of like, God,
100%. You can't walk back that damn. That damn was an exclamation.
I always kind of put it out there with sometimes if I'm talking to women, I just let them know my age off the bat because they're gonna find out anyways. And if they think I'm too old to get with them or be with them, then they already know. Someone's like, "Well, you had to lie." I'm like, "Why?" They're gonna find out. Like, I got cranky knees and a bad shoulder and a bad back. Like, they're gonna know that I'm pushing, the 50 button soon. So,
yes.
Ted from Ted Talks Ball. Speaking of the devil, and he shall appear.
Ted,
Aaron and Rob, goats. Thank you very much, my man. I appreciate it. Ted, we were talking about your Brock Purdy apology tour, and I said that I always agreed with your premise of why you had reservations and were not with all this hyperbole of like crowning somebody after, 10 games. You know what I mean? Like we did it with Jimmy, and I could understand where people are like, no, I'm just not going to allow myself to go there. And like, that's pretty much what his argument was. But after he said, I want to see him do good against a good defense. And he did incredible against that Cowboys defense. It'll only be proven with more games this season how good that defense actually is. But I think he did pretty well regardless. So, let's talk about something that really pissed me off from Dan Orlowski. Dan Orlowski pretty much said that if Mac Jones was a 49er right now, he would be playing like Brock Purdy in this system. Do you agree? I don't.
No. However, I get what he's going for. I understand the sentiment. I think Mac Jones would look better than he does with the Patriots right now if you put him into this system. That Mac is the type of quarterback that could operate this system successfully. Do I think he could operate it at the level Brock Purdy is operating it? No, because I've seen other quarterbacks try and no one has to this point, and I've not seen anything from Mac that leads me to believe he possesses some special skill set in the way that Brock Purdy does. So I think that it's a false statement in saying that he would perform at the level of Brock Purdy. I think it would be a fair statement to say Mac would look a hell of a lot better if you put him in an offense that didn't ask what's being asked of him in New England. If he were able to make the right reads, get the ball out on time, that he is that type of processing quarterback that could do well within this system.
Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me the way he plays. But I think he would be better. Yeah, you're right. In this system with these weapons, but I just feel like Brock has such a grasp on this offense, and it's like a master class every time he's out there. Like I said, it's still early and a lot can change. I just find it really, really aggravating and funny that these bummy, no good, never played anything worth any good football in the National Football League are always the one with the staunchiest, most ridiculous takes. And it's like, is that coming from a place of jealousy because you sucked so bad? Or are you trying to just be an analyst with like a really hard, like against the grain type take? Like I've never understood that. Then you got that goofball that's on that other show, who's the Chiefs fan. I forget his name. He's got the scraggly hair. He looks like a mouse. He gets on my nerves. I know you guys know who I'm talking about. He's just not sold on Brock Purdy either. I forget his name, but yeah, like some of these guys, I don't know, man. I just find it funny that oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. The Cowboys fan, that Mr. I throw my jerseys out in the trash after games.
Skip Bayless
was like giving props to Brock Purdy and the 49ers. And I know that was just like hurting him and eating him up inside. So
yeah.
I think it's Nick Wright, the guys that I'm talking about. Nick Wright.
Oh, gotcha. It's hard to know where they're coming from, but it is interesting that a lot of the guys who were third stringers, second stringers, turn out to be decent coordinators, decent position coaches, like Steve Kerr. To me, it's always the players who weren't elite athletes themselves. Like Michael Jordan never had to think about the entire process of breaking down the play because he just was the best athlete on the court, right? I'm not saying that Michael didn't apply himself and didn't study tape. The man obviously did. He was the greatest of all time, in my humble opinion, still is.
Yep.
But a player who's not as athletically gifted has to lean into the mental side of the game more because they're outmatched physically. And you often see those people understanding the game in a way that is a deeper understanding of the game and an ability to then pass that knowledge along. Because coaching really is about that transfer of information. You could be the smartest person in the world. You might be a terrible fucking coach if you can't teach people what it is you're trying to instill, right? And I think for the longest time, Kyle Shanahan kind of fit that mold in that he couldn't instill in his quarterbacks what he really was asking of them. What he asked tended to put too much pressure and they would make boneheaded mistakes. And now he finally has someone that has that intellect. And so I can see why these, analysts have the positions they do, to the point of taking an outlandish stance. That, yeah, it's probably clickbait. But, that is the industry, right?
You know who I really respect who does breakdowns is JT O'Sullivan. I think
he talks a great game, has a smooth channel. Yeah, love his stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people got mad at his Trey Lance breakdown. But, I mean, I watched the breakdown, and I thought he was 100% on point with Trey Lance. Like, there was just some things in that preseason game where he didn't know what he was seeing. Like, what was he look? You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, he's picking on him." I'm like, he's not picking on him. He's looking at the film and he's giving you a breakdown. He's not going in there with any preconceived notions or ideas. He's not a 49er fan, so he's not rooting for one guy versus the other. So,
right.
I think he's great. He's got a great voice for it too, kind of like yours. So
he does have a fantastic voice.
He's got the great camera and everything. So yeah, he's got the bomb ass setup too.
Yeah, it's dialed in.
I want to get your thoughts on not Dan. I want to get your thoughts on Randy Gregory, the Niners' new defensive toy that they got from the Denver Broncos via trade. What's your thoughts?
I love the move because it didn't cost us nearly anything, right? I mean, the pick swap, assuming that we end up near the end of the draft and they end up near the beginning of the draft, becomes, a matter of how many compensatory picks get given out in the 6th round. And it's maybe 10 to 12 spot pick swap to get Randy Gregory on the team. And, Denver eats a fair amount of that salary down to the vet minimum. So in that way, it's very little risk. I will say that regardless of the suspensions and the injuries that he's had, and the fact that he hasn't been on the field for as many games as you want to see over that period of time, that to me, the production was never elite from Randy Gregory, right? I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say that. I think his highest sack total is 6, maybe 6.5 in a season. But when you pair someone like that along a defensive line that is already so talented, you can have a little bit of that unlock that happens. It's just at this stage in his career, I'm not so sure that this is going to be a dominant move. However, the Niners defense is already phenomenal. It doesn't take a big move to improve this defense that much more. It doesn't take much more to free up Nick Bosa. So I like the move. I think it upgrades the 49ers. I don't think that it's a huge swing, though. I don't think it's truly going to impact his team. It's not an unlock for me that like Dee Ford was until he got hurt. That was an unlock for that defense. It made it almost unstoppable. I do not think that's the case. I am excited to see him out there, though.
Yeah, I would like to see what he can do, but to say that he's going to be the guy that, pushes us over the top.
Mm-hmm.
There were some people that were really losing their minds over it. I'm like, yeah, you guys need to chill out. Like, Frank Clark actually just got released from the Broncos, and a lot of people were like, hey, they asked John Lynch, and Lynch did say that like he's kind of cool where we are defensively. And then they also asked him like down the road trade deadline, and he's like, we're always looking. So Frank Clark, I feel like, is a little bit of a malcontent. I don't know if I'd necessarily want 2 malcontents from a team that's trying to get rid of both of them on our team. I think that would be a bad mix. If I had to do this over again, I would probably take Frank Clark.
He's the more productive of the two.
He's a way better player, but he also has issues with the behavioral issues and domestic abuse. I'm not big on guys that hit women, so that's kind of a no-go for me. And I'm not trying to be like a one of those kind of people like, oh, he hits women, I don't want him here. Like, no, I don't know. It just doesn't vibe with the 49ers current way of doing things.
I mean, I think with Randy Gregory, a lot of those early things that he got into trouble with were for smoking weed. And so to me, it's sort of ridiculous. It took the NFL as long as it did to come around on that policy because of the inequitable way in which it hurt certain players within the NFL. And it's just, to me, again, ridiculous that it took so long. But nowadays, it doesn't seem like they're offering any, suspensions for dirty marijuana tests when they're doing drug testing. So that part of it is no longer a concern for Randy Gregory. There is a slight taste of like, if things aren't going well, the relationship could go sideways. But we're paying him so little that, I mean, it would take nothing to cut him and bring back, another D lineman, right? I'm pretty sure that we'd probably be able to bring back Kerry Hyder at that point.
would you be okay with a move towards the trade deadline for another player, say like a Brian Burns or a Patrick Surtain?
Absolutely. I think the Niners should do that. You can't have too much firepower with the idea that something can happen in December. A key player could go down. Like that just is the nature of the NFL. So every step you can take to insulate yourself talent wise to strengthen a different component of the team so that you don't need to lean on this aspect, strengthen the defense in case the offense is no longer scoring 30 points per game. Like to me, there are marquee players that, to Lynch's point, you just keep your ears open and your eyes open, right? If one comes available, you don't mortgage the farm to get them, but if they're available at even a reasonable price, you take a swing and you absolutely use draft capital to do so. You move around contracts. The Niners freed up all that money. They could pay somebody. So yes, I definitely believe that we should if someone becomes available.
There's only two players that I would make a deadline move for, and that's Brian Burns and Patrick Surtain.
Those would be phenomenal additions.
Yeah, both defense. Nobody saw Christian McCaffrey happening last year. I didn't. You didn't. I couldn't believe when it flashed across my screen on my phone. I'm like, oh, no freaking way. No freaking way. Like, he's so freaking good. And it happened, and what a change that had. After that Chiefs game where we got blown out, wow. What I still can't believe he's a 49er sometimes to Christian McCaffrey. It's like not fair. It's not fair that we have him, but that's all right. That's all right. Another question I have for you is, as a fan, do you think the Niners are peaking too early?
No, because I'm not sure that we've actually seen them peak. They are firing on all cylinders. Answer. And I believe that it's never bad to fire on all cylinders. If you can run up points, it'd be nice if the Niners ran up points and were able to actually rest starters more frequently. Like if with the 5 games was
the perfect example of how we want to win games, right?
Right. Like that's beautiful because then you're rolling, firing on all cylinders, and the added benefit is less wear and tear on your starters in getting ahead. But if you're in a lot of close games, it's tough to say. Where I think the Niners can get considerably better is on defense. I really don't think that we have seen the best from this defense. I think there are going to be some games where they really lock down teams.
Yeah, this defense, to me, I feel like it hasn't hit its peak. I feel like this offense hasn't really hit its peak, but it's pretty damn close. Like
pretty close.
They play. I mean, I don't know how much more you could do. I mean, unless you're the Dolphins, and you want to score 70 points on somebody. But that's unnecessary to score that many points.
It is. Like, turns out that's only in one game. Like you don't get to spread those out over multiple weeks.
Right. And then you come out the next week against the Bills and you lose. You only can score 20.
Needed some of those touchdowns back.
Yeah. Can we trade those? I think the defense is the one side of the ball I could see some improvement. I feel like the pass rush has been a little bit absent. I'm still hoping that the Niners can, turn up the heat, so to speak, because I feel like I said, it's been absent, but it's early in the year still. It's only 5 weeks in. This is an example of the team not firing on all cylinders, I'll take it. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's room to improve, but if they continued to play at this level on offense and defense, you could see them going into every week being favored to win those games. So the idea that maybe we get even more out of this team is, again, pretty special. Like this, to me, this season is the epitome of like, soak this in. Don't waste a moment thinking about, oh, well, this season only matters if the Niners, win it all. Like, no, these games, the idea of starting any season perfect, even if it's just a couple of games, let alone 5 in a row, like that's special within the NFL. It doesn't happen all that often. Look at the number of records that are being broken by this team, by players on this team. It is what we are watching right now is the type of memories that you hold on to when you're in the middle of the start of the Alex Smith era, right? You and I know that pain of like Mike Nolan on the sideline in the suit and that what we had to watch on the field. The only saving grace was thinking back to the glory years. These are the glory years.
The whole suit thing, and like you sucked. Like what? I'm wearing a suit to like my dad. Yeah, but the team's garbage. We don't want to have Aaron Rodgers as our quarterback because he's a big meanie. So we're gonna draft Alex Smith instead.
Yeah.
Um, real quick, we're gonna get out of here, but I just want to give your prediction for the Browns, 49ers v Browns score prediction. I gave it out a couple times already this week, so I'll let you go first. What's your kind of like feel for the game and how it's gonna end up?
Yeah. So, I mean, I view this game as a real test for the 49ers offense, an offense that's obviously averaging more than 30 points per game coming into this against the number one defense in the NFL to this point in the season. And I look at, on the other side of the ball with Cleveland, an offense that I don't think is going to be able to do all that much. When I look at the downgrade in the injury to Nick Chubb down to Jerome Ford, in the loss of Deshaun Watson, and now going to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I don't see an offense that, save for catching us off guard with someone that there isn't a whole lot of tape on, I don't see that being a high-scoring affair from Cleveland's standpoint. However, if they are able to stop the run effectively against us, and with that vaunted pass rush, get after Brock Purdy and continually hit him, I could see a disjointed offense for the 49ers as well. I have a hard time seeing a real low baseball type of score, but that's the type of game this could break out to be, like a slugfest. A lot of fans will hate it because it'll be tight. It'll be low scoring. You won't have that many splashy plays from an offensive side. There'll be a lot of splashy plays from the defensive side. I love those games. I love watching guys absolutely crush one another on defense, laying one's body out on the line to stop them before a first down, a sack on 3rd and long to get off of the field, pinning them deep with punts. Like, the strategy that goes into a close defensive matchup to me is phenomenal. It's like a chess match, and Kyle tightens up. He goes back to like old school football. My nerves go up considerably. So I think this one could be tight. However, I'm going to say that the Niners put up 17 in this one and allow 11. So I'm going 17-11. Niners win. I just pulled that one up right now with doing a little bit of logic and walking through it.
I had a little bit of a higher score, but talking to you, I've dropped it considerably. I'm going to say the Niners 21, Browns 10. That's the kind of, couple.
I like that.
We'll get some touchdowns. They'll be hard fought, long time consuming drives, little, like you said, disjointed, funky looking, but I just think the Niners are the better team on both sides of the ball. Even though Cleveland's got an amazing defense, but I just don't think they have offensively enough to really put us to where we're going to be in a shootout. Things could, you never know. You never know.
Any given Sunday.
Come into this game half asleep, but any given Sunday. But I just, if you're speaking to me, gun against the head, I think the Niners win 21-10. That's my score, and I'm sticking to it.
Nice.
Everybody, appreciate you coming through, supporting me and Rob. We're going to get out of here. I'm going to let Rob enjoy his Friday evening, and we're going to try to do this again if both parties are able. It's not like a concrete thing, people have lives, but I'm going to put it out there every Friday with Rob, like, hey, can you? And if you can, great. If you can't, that's okay too. So everybody have a great rest of your night. Thanks for coming through and supporting the stream. And I will see you guys probably Monday, unless I have a stream tomorrow. I will be hosting Niners Coast to Coast on my channel on Monday, post game for the Browns game. So everybody, see you then. Take care. Go Niners.
Cheers, Faith.